Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Read TFOS, where I take old stories I've narrated and update them to modern audio standards. This particular story is called Phoenix, written by Chengelao. There was a phoenix in the center of the mural. Dmitry Petrov had been staring at it for an hour. The canvas was older than he was. It had been placed on the wall of the United Nations Security Council as a sign of peace and cooperation between mankind just at the start of the Cold War. Around the central phoenix, there were symbols of chaos and suffering at the bottom, contrasting the prosperity and joy at the top. It was an obvious analogy that humanity should rise from their troubled past to the noble, heavenly ideas of above and beyond, that Dmitry had considered it an hideously optimistic painting when he first saw it. Now the Russian General Secretary couldn't help but be captivated by the phoenix in the middle. Was the phoenix supposed to represent a gatekeeper, a judge to decide whether humanity deserved to ascend to heaven? He was broken from his trance when the doors opened up to reveal an outwardly bespectacled man in a pristine black suit and pink-dotted tie. "I apologize for being late," the senior man said as he walked as briskly as his old legs would propel him to his seat. With a hefty wheeze, he placed himself in the chair of a round table that was labeled United States of America. "No need to apologize, Mr. O'Donnell," said Chairman Zhang. The Chinese man spoke with his signature plastic smile. "We are simply happy that you could make it alive and well." "Mr. O'Donnell, if I may," Dmitry said, "will your president be able to make it to this meeting?" The American man shook his head. "I regret to inform you that the president's condition is worsening, and he is unlikely to recover. I've been sworn in as the acting president of the United States in this trying time." Dmitry felt his heart sink a little. The last U.S. president had a major proponent of a united front against the alien invaders. O'Donnell, on the other hand, was known to be a staunch isolationist, a religious populist, and an ancient dinosaur from the Cold War. With O'Donnell now at the helm of Earth's leading superpower, Dmitry was now faced with an additional layer of hurdles in order to achieve his goals in this meeting. Nonetheless, the Russian maintained a poker face. Regardless of how he felt about O'Donnell, the man was now the leader of the United States. Dmitry had to deal with him now, and Russia couldn't afford to be making enemies now. "I also regret to inform you all that Mr. Addington will also not be attending this video conference," the acting American president continued. "With the recent destruction of London, he'll be busy addressing his people." The Russian and Chinese nodded. Dmitry had known that the Prime Minister wouldn't be showing up, but the news remained disappointing. Of all the once mighty nations of Earth that had seats in the UN Security Council, only 3 continued to sit around the table. The meeting began shortly after, with each member presenting their report on the situation. Zhang started first. "I believe that we could use some good news in these difficult times. As such, I am pleased to report that the brave soldiers of the Heroics People Liberation Army have scored another great victory against the alien invaders at Wuhan. Scores of alien devils lay dead in the face of our army's valiant defense." His implacable smile betraying no signs of anxiety as he boasted of the might of his homeland. But Dmitry could tell from the graying hairs in the chairman's temples that he was stressed. As the German spoke, Dmitry decoded the hidden message behind the words, that the Chinese city of Wuhan had fallen, and the PLA had lost millions in the futile human wave charges. O'Donnell spoke next, beginning a similar boast of American might, reciting in a droning voice from a page laid out in front of him. "In my time as acting president, I have been informed by my chief of staff of the joint forces of the United States of America that we have succeeded in holding back the aliens in spite of their repeated aggression on American soil. A counterattack will be launched this winter, so that we can drive these invaders from our land, so that we may act as an island of freedom and independence in the face of galactic oppression and tyranny." Again, Dmitry managed to translate. The US armed forces were barely holding on, and the Americans needed to pull troops out from Europe in order to save their own skins. It was the usual lies. The French, the Brits, the Germans, the Italians, all of them had spouted the same lies, even as fewer and fewer members managed to make it to the Security Council meeting. And who was he to criticize? Had he not been saying the same lines in this echo chamber, hiding the fact that the Russian Federation was on the verge of total collapse from his nominal lies? The floor was now his, and he began to prepare to read out the script in front of him. That the Russian armed forces had won a decisive victory around Smolensk, when in actuality the city of Smolensk had been reduced to ashes. But he couldn't say it. He couldn't bring himself to say another word of lies to his fellow men, now that humanity was facing extinction in the face of a superior alien foe. He turned to look at this phoenix in the mirror. What judgment would he cast upon him, upon his fellow man? Did they deserve the death and suffering now because of all the lies they had told each other all these years? Were the alien invaders a form of divine intervention to break up the strained false peace that humanity had maintained all these years? No, Dmitri could lie no longer. He had to tell the truth. "My friends," the Russian man spoke. His voice began to quiver for the first time in decades as he dropped his diplomatic mask. "I would like to inform you all that this entire meeting is a farce." Neither his Chinese or American counterpart showed any reaction, but the trained sixth sense of the General Secretary told him that he knew he had their full attention. "For the past few months, we have told each other that all is well, that we have been winning a victory after victory, even as our cities fall silent one by one. But I simply cannot lie anymore. Unlike the two of you who are the leaders of the world's hegemony and the world's leading industrial superpower, respectively, I am the leader of a nation that was in decline even before the aliens came to devastate us. Mother Russia can no longer hold back the hordes from the cosmos. We are, quite frankly, doomed, and this will likely be the last time I'll see the two of you in the living realm. So from here on out, I'll speak my mind, truthfully, and without withholding any information." The General Secretary took out a separate dossier, one that was not from the script that he was meant to read out, and handed it to his counterparts to read. As the American and Chinese heads of state skimmed through the documents, Dmitri explained soberly. "You will see here details of contingency plans that the Russian Federation has made in the case that we lose the war. Attempts to run the orbital blockade with faster-than-light ships and fly to a new planet. Hypothetical superweapons that may turn the tide of the war. Deep underground bunker cities where our citizens may hide and thrive until the one day throw back the invaders and retake our homeland. And of course, total nuclear annihilation. As you can see, many of these plans are extremely ambitious. And for the past few months, we have tried to maintain the image of being a part of this united human front against the aliens as we try to buy time for these projects. But all of these plans are simply unfeasible with the limited resources of my home country. I ask you now, as the leader of a dying nation, let us set aside our petty differences and work together as we should have from the start." Dmitri sat back down as silence filled the room. The American and Chinese representatives exchanged awkward glances amongst themselves as they looked through the classified Russian projects. Both nations had their own fair share of secret contingency plans, and from the way their ambassadors fidgeted, Dmitri could tell their plans were going as smoothly as his own. After a few minutes of internal murmuring, the Chinese chairman took up first. "We have a proverb in China of the old fool who moves mountains. The old fool had 2 mountains that obstructed his path, so he decided to chisel the mountain away stone by stone. When he was told that he would die before he was able to move the mountain, the old fool answered, 'I may not be able to move the mountain in my lifetime, but I will have children, and my children will have children. Through generations of hard work, we will one day move this mountain away.'" As usual, Zhang spoke with a smile. Only this time, it was not the inscrutable smile of a polite Oriental bureaucrat, but the wry smile of an overworked husband having to console his spouse over the death of their children. "The war is lost," he finally admitted. "But if we can find a way to secure the future for humankind, we will one day overcome any obstacle. The People's Republic of China will spare no expense for this monumental task, my friend. Do you have our support?" "Thank you," the Russian General Secretary said, sharing a grateful nod of understanding with the chairman. "You two are godless communists." The American stood up from his seat, removing his glasses. His voice was gruff, his face was red, and his body shook in a torrent of barely concealed emotion. "And if I'd been made president 40 years ago, I would have given the order to blow both of your godforsaken dirt pile countries back to kingdom come." The acting American president grit his teeth and clenched his fists. His face became so red that Dmitri felt like the man was on the verge of popping like a microwaved tomato. "And yet, here we stand. I'm standing as the president of God's own country, amongst the world's last great nations, as allies in a war of extermination. And we're losing, damn it." The old man pounded his fist on the desk in a futile rage as he seethed through his teeth. "You want our support, we'll give it to you. We'll give you 110% of what we've got. But promise me this. We are pulling out all the stops. We are going to overstep every moral, ethical, and religious boundary for the sake of survival of our species. You boys and I are going down to hell, and the three of us are going to share bunk beds, because the Lord himself cannot forgive us for the evils we'll be committing. And by the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, we are going to hurt those alien bastards for what they've done to us. Promise me this, and I will give you everything I can, and more." The Russian and Chinese nodded in turn. "It is then agreed," Zhang said. "May we see each other in hell, so that humanity can live." "Agreed," Dmitri acknowledged. "May we see each other in hell." With that, the first and also the last genuine meeting of the UN Security Council took place. They spoke not as leaders of Russia, China, and the United States, but as fellow humans. In these final hours, these three most powerful humans agreed amidst alcohol, jokes, folk songs, and incomprehensible Chinese proverbs that they would find a way to save as much of humanity as possible before detonating every single nuclear, biological, and chemical weapon on Earth. After a grueling yet oddly heartfelt 24-hour session, the meeting finally adjourned, and the big three said their final farewells to one another. As he left, Dmitry Petrov looked at the mural one last time. He reminisced about the peaceful times before the aliens invaded, when the world's problems revolved around money and fossil fuels and climate change. He recalled the old war stories, the horrors depicted at the bottom of that mural, and the far worse horrors that he'd seen since the invasion. Humanity would be the phoenix, a phoenix that has seen the full cycle of life and death, spreading its wings to burn all it touched, going out in a final blaze of glory, and one day rise from the ashes. End of story. I would just like to thank the T5 supporters: Bushmaster 117, Casper Arnholtz, Dragzoon WRE, Elijah Silvercross, Gray, John Carrington, and Severin Cerberus. Thank you very much.